On December 2nd, 1984, Bhopal faced a deadly disaster that changed the lives of the people in the city in a matter of minutes. More than 40 tons of a toxic gas leaked from one of India's highly reputed pesticide plants and immediately killed at least 3,800 people. This event took place at Bhopal's Union Carbide India Limited, an insecticide manufacturing company which is surrounded by slums. A toxic gas began to leak from the Union Carbide's pesticide plant, but this wasn't just any gas. It was methyl isocyanate or MIC. I'm talking about one of the most catastrophic events in India's history, the Bhopal Gas Tragedy. In 1934, Union Carbide, an American company, wanted to open its plant in India, hoping to invest in the country. Surprisingly, this was a part of India's Green Revolution, which is very ironical. I'll talk about this later. This factory was confident that it would be an epitome of the Industrial Revolution, but that didn't last too long. Over the years, their sales dropped by a fifth and never met the company's expectations. The factory was preparing thousands of tons of pesticides, solvents, chemical catalysts, and byproducts across 6 hectares inside the plant itself. For 15 years before the disaster, thousands of liters of liquid waste was thrown all around the city's slums, covering almost 14 hectares of land. But nobody bothered to think about the dangerous chemicals present there. Their main task of helping farmers wasn't successful either, since their toxins contaminated the soil and caused drought, which majorly affected the farmers. Clearly, the company's actions didn't really line up with their Green Revolution goals. This didn't just stop here. It was a rule that no gas tank could be filled to a level higher than 50% of its capacity. But the authorities used inert nitrogen gas to pressurize the tank. Basically, inert gases do not undergo chemical reaction under some given conditions. So, this was a perfect jugaad for them. The question that irritated the public the most was the accident meant to happen? Apparently, before 1981, everything was running smoothly. Well, at least for the world. But a local journalist had been pointing out since then that the factory was dangerously unsafe. This was Rajkumar Keswani. Since 1981, he had been alarming authorities about the safety conditions at the Union Carbide plant, which went unheard. This is when Keswani started keenly investigating the Union Carbide plant. The lucky part was that his friend was a plant employee and he had already spoken about the dangers of the leak. Unfortunately, his friend himself became a victim of the factory's threat, dying at the plant on 24 December 1981 after inhaling a highly toxic gas. This made Keswani even more eager to know what was happening inside. From internal information sources, Keswani found 2 people who were fired, Bashirullah and Shankar Malviya, who helped him get hold of all manuals and confidential reports. After scanning everything, Keswani first wrote about the inadequate safety standards on 26 September 1982 with the title "Bachaiye Huzur, is Sheher ko bachaiye." He repeated this warning in 2 follow-up articles which were published just 2 months before the tragedy. One was on October 1st titled "Jwalamukhi ke Muhane Baita Bhopal," and the other on October 8th called "Na samjhoge to aakhir mit jaoge." So, couldn't the authorities at least look into it? Reports say that warning letters to the then Chief Minister Arjun Singh were being rejected over and over again. He would assure people that everything was fine, even when evidence of safety violations was piling up. In fact, Arjun told the assembly that he personally inspected the carbide plant and they had absolutely nothing to worry about. There was this continuous chain of fear which was replied with nothing was wrong. But now nothing could be done. The stage was set for India's first major industrial disaster.
To learn more about what happened in Bhopal, India.
Within days of the disaster, Union Carbide boss Warren Anderson claims this was no accident.
It doesn't sound like something that's inadvertent.
On the main day, 2nd December 1984, around midnight, a storage tank at the plant began leaking the MIC gas. The plant had 6 safety systems that were technically made to detect such a leak, none of which were operational that night. An engineer was trying to flush water through an oxidized pipe in the MIC production complex and many valves failed, making the water flow freely into one of the 3-story tanks holding the toxic chemical in a liquid state. The tank shattered and sprayed a deadly mixture of toxic chemicals, and eventually 27 tons of the gas spread throughout the sleeping city. As the cloud of gas silently overtook Bhopal, the chaos started. People were screaming in sickness, and for at least 2,500 people, Babies and children, fathers and mothers, siblings and grandparents were painfully dying right in front of them. A survivor stated that she woke up around 12:30 a.m. to the sound of her baby coughing badly. The room was filled with a white cloud and people outside were shouting. She started coughing, feeling as if she was breathing in air and her eyes were burning. Another recalled that it felt like their bodies were filled with chilies. Their eyes were tearing, noses watered, and froth came out of their mouths. The coughing was so severe that people were tossing and turning in pain. The worst part was that no one really knew what was happening. People started dying in the most hideous ways. Some were vomiting uncontrollably, had seizures, and then died. Many people died in the stampedes toward narrow lanes where street lamps had also burned brown because of the gas. Children lost their parents due to the panic, and families were literally ripped apart. Shockingly, the Hamidiya hospital, which is the main government hospital in the area, was never notified about what chemical was in use and how to treat the people. So, locals tried to survive by staying home and using water or fire, which were actually life-saving measures that could have saved many more lives if only Union Carbide didn't keep it a secret. Despite having piles of proof of the site's toxicity, the company chose not to tell the local people that the water around the plant was also dangerous to consume. This truth was only exposed in 1999 when Greenpeace investigators, after running a series of tests, reported that soil and water in and around the plant were contaminated by heavy metals which are both highly toxic and accumulated in the body, slowly killing the affected person. It also found that the groundwater and well water near the site had extreme mercury levels up to 6 millimeters greater than what is safe. This was definitely a turning point because Union Carbide was to be blamed not only for committing thousands of murders but also for the corporate greed, negligence, and the protection of the corporation at the cost of human lives. This crime was even bigger and it exposed everything that had been building for years. Scared to face these charges, the then CEO of Union Carbide, Warren Anderson, fled the country and never returned to avoid the justice of the people. I mean, after all this, are we even surprised? The aftermath saw the factory simply being left to rust. In the days that followed the event, the death toll rose dramatically from 3,000 to over 16,000 in the initial days after the leak. In the next few years, the disaster estimated total death as high as 25,000. But is this the exact number of people that died? We don't know yet. Even chemicals that were found in bodies caused cancer, brain damage, and birth defects. Trichloroethene, a chemical shown to impair fetal development, was found at levels 50 times higher than Environmental Protection Agency's limit. Later, a 2002 report revealed that poisons were found in women's breast milk as well. This event was not just going down in history, but also in the future, affecting generations to come. More than 150,000 people continued to suffer from respiratory diseases, cancer, and a lot more than just health issues. But what did the Union Carbide and authorities do about it? They gave a sly response by choosing compensation that sounded like a very easy way out. In February of 1989, the Supreme Court of India signed a settlement where Union Carbide Corporation agreed to pay $470 million for the victims. Turns out, the compensation distribution didn't really work out well for them. It was full of corruption and inefficiencies. Many people falsely claimed to be present during the incident to receive money, which took away money from the real victims. Shockingly, even the Indian government was irresponsible when distributing it and caused delays. Originally, the number was 102,000 injured and 3,000 deaths. By 2003, around 5.5 lakh injury claims and 15,000 death claims were compensated, but victims received hardly anything. Approximately only 25,000 rupees for injuries and 1 lakh for deaths, making people even more angry. Even the Rajiv Gandhi government couldn't hold Union Carbide accountable due to political priorities before national elections. The Bhopal Gas Tragedy is a chilling reminder of corporate greed and negligence. Compensation was corrupt and inadequate, and the CEO himself fled justice. It's a sad example of putting profits over people, while innocent people die painfully and survivors suffer for decades. The ones truly responsible for this, which was the leadership of Union Carbide, including the CEO, and Arjun Singh, the then CM of Madhya Pradesh, who allegedly helped the CEO escape the country, continued to live a happy and comfortable life. The fact remains that the site has not yet been cleaned up and hazardous chemicals can still be found in the now abandoned site. Will this disaster of Bhopal ever drive change in corporate accountability? What do you think?